Summertime and the living's easy, except if you have sunburns and too much sun in your eyes and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about some of the dangers of our summertime fun with Dr. John Hovannisian from Harvard Eye Associates. Welcome to the program.
How are you? Summer's here, Michael.
Summer's
it's
here,
exciting.
Right? And it is fun, and we have a lot more sunshine, and our eyes are going to be getting a lot more sunshine, and we're going to be outdoors a lot more. And there's some of the things that kind of happen along the way, right?
Yes.
And so we have some summer eye problems we want to tell people about, like summer eye allergies, right? And why is it different in the summer? Because of all the pollens?
Oh yeah. Well, we just had all the rain that came and more or less passed, I think now, and we've got wind and we've got the sun is heating all those plants and feeding them energy so that they're growing. And what are they producing? Pollen. And anytime we get wind, especially those Santa Ana winds that blow the dust, which is another problem, and pollen from the desert, or just blows it around our yards, we're exposed to all of those things that cause us allergies.
Right, and people are taking, the allergy medications, those kinds of things, but it's a real factor for our eyes, right? And it just really kind of gets to us. In the sun itself, there's things like corneal burns, which I would imagine is extreme, but just the sun hitting our eyes without any good protection is a real challenge too, right?
Sure, there's no question that sun is harsh on us, and it's a lot more intense in the summertime. So we see conditions like pterygium and pingueculum, which are thickening on the white of the eye that come from sunlight.
Okay.
But the heat also just it dries your eyes more because you're in a drier environment where the water on your eyes, the tears evaporate more quickly.
Right, that's our third one on the list is the dry eyes, right? Because we're people call us, it's a dry heat, but it is it is evaporate up, it goes away, so that the moisture in our eyes, I imagine, evaporates even faster too, right?
It does. And you think about it, the eyes are this unique part of the body because it's this moist surface that is continuously exposed when we're not blinking. And so it is a perfect place for pollens and dust and other things to stick and cause irritation to our mucous membranes on our eyes. And it also is exposed and therefore it dries. And so we have real issues with keeping a smooth surface of fluid on our eye to help us see well.
Right, but that smooth surface also is keeping stuff away from getting into our eyes, right? So that's our number 4 on our list is like the increased risk for infection because of all the exposure, all the stuff hitting our eyes, and maybe a little drier, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so infection, and I'll add to that exposure, so chemical exposure, we're in our yards more, we're doing things outdoors more, and there's risk for injury that comes with that, there's risk for exposure to chemicals and just sunscreen, which is great for our skin, but when we get it in our eyes, it's certainly irritating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Now, one of the other things in there is, it's summertime, there's more light, people are doing more stuff, they're up later, kids are, I remember in the summer, I used to stay up all night, we have like tired eyes, and we're just kind of a lack of sleep, and we're not giving our eyes enough rest that they need? Yeah,
people get on average about 40 minutes less sleep during the summer months than they do during the winter months. That's a well-studied phenomenon, and particularly now that we have all these smart watches that track our sleep, we're really seeing that that's true. And so sleep is the time our bodies regenerate. It's when they recover from the injuries of the day or the stress of the day. And so, it's not just so much a feeling of tired eyes. We have less capacity to recover from the minor injury that we incur during the day when we don't sleep as well.
Yeah, I know that, like the heaviness of the eyes sometimes at the end of the day, I'm like, my eyes need to rest.
Time to sleep, time to sleep, yeah.
All right, so we talked about some of the issues we have there, but how about some of the things we can do in terms of taking care of our eyes during the summer? Number 1 is wearing those sunglasses, right? If we're gonna be in the sun a lot, there's that protection.
Yep, and you don't need to spend a fortune on sunglasses to have good eye protection. You need to have something that fits you well, that you're willing to wear, that you see well enough with, prescription if you need that. For your own eyes, something that wraps around well so that it covers on the side, so you're not getting a lot of exposure that way. And something that has UV protection. UV 400 is the number to look for. Not all eyeglasses are labeled well for that. There's not a lot of regulation, but decent sunglasses usually have some labeling as to how their UV filter works.
Without the UV protection, without the sun, what's happening in our eye with the sunlight? Is there actually damage that can occur into our eye? What's the result of that?
At all different levels of the eye, and different wavelengths of UV will penetrate different layers of the eye and cause damage. But we know everything from pingueculum on the surface of the eye to macular degeneration at the back of the eye has a component that comes from UV damage. And so protecting our eyes from UV with protective sunwear is just a smart thing to do.
And can you see that when you examine a patient
All the time.
and look at the back and say, hey, it looks like you have some sun damage here? Like,
Yeah,
but it might be a lot of factors, right?
Well said. That's exactly right. Macular degeneration, for example, is age is number one, and heredity plays a role. Diet and other metabolic disease can play a role, but absolutely exposure and sunlight we think plays an important role in that disease.
Now, wearing sunscreen, how does that help our eyes?
Well, not so much for our eyes directly, but for the skin around the eyes, because we treat an awful lot of skin cancers on the eyelids. It's one of the commonest places people get them because, the eyelid, the lower part of the cheek in particular, 97% of the cancers we see there, basal cell carcinomas, happen in that area because of just the unique exposure. So we often aren't great about getting sunscreen close to our eyes because we're worried about getting it in. But so if you wear your sunglasses and you wear a hat with a brim, that helps a huge amount. You can be more conservative with the sunscreen, but protect the eyes one way or another. Protect them from the sun.
Yeah, I've turned into an old person at the beach. I'm in an umbrella. I have the hat on and the sunglasses.
That's a smart person. That's not an old person. That's triple coverage. That's belt and suspenders, Michael.
I'm the person I used to make fun of when I was a kid at the beach.
That's it. Big old baggy shorts, the metal detector out there.
Drinking plenty of water, I assume that helps with the dry eyes, right? Or keeping that stuff going.
And dehydration. We talked a little bit about that. Everything. We sweat more and we lose more water naturally in the summertime, and so drinking plenty of water addresses dry eye and helps us just stay healthier.
Okay. And we can also, if we have even more of a challenge with dry eye, how about eye drops? Is that good advice there?
Absolutely. So lubricant eye drops are always the kind of first line of defense when you're actually having dry eye symptoms. They're plentiful and available. They're not expensive. You don't need to buy super expensive ones. There are those that are preservative free, and those are great if you're going to take them more than about 4 times a day because the preservatives at that point start to irritate you. But if you're not sensitive to the drops and you're just using them occasionally, you can buy any brand that suits you. And you have to try different ones because different brands, just like with skin moisturizers, you might prefer one over another. So you got to try a few different ones.
Okay. Are there different chemistries to the eye that would make mine different than how yours would prefer?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's hard to predict. It's hard to look at an eye and say, "Ooh, this drop is going to be right for you."
Oh, wow.
It's easier just to try different ones and kind of see what you like. What you like is good for you.
And finally, we're splashing around, we're at the beach, we're at the pool. Wearing goggles is a good protection for the irritants that are in the waters?
Yeah, I don't let my kids, and I never get in a swimming pool without goggles on, and the ocean too is just full of nasty stuff. Even adequately chlorinated swimming pools can facilitate infections that are really nasty in the eye. And it's just no point in
the
doing
chemical
that.
chlorine itself, right, is going to irritate the eye.
That's right. Yeah, just the fact that it's not balanced. It's pH balanced, but the salts in it are irritating the eyes. They cause swelling in the eye, which opens the way for infection and just irritation to the surface. So just wear the goggles, and you see better underwater too.
Yeah, and as a kid, I remember the summers in the pools, and my eyes were always red by the end of the day.
Awful, the things we used to do, right? Let's not make those mistakes as adults.
The things we used to torture ourselves with.
Right.
If someone's having a challenge, if someone's having difficulties, what can we do? Should we come in and see you?
Yeah, so if your eyes are irritated for whatever reason, a couple things to try. Again, lubricant eye drops are always terrific. Warm compresses are helpful, particularly if they're dry. Sometimes cold is better, particularly if you have a lot of itching. Itching usually is a signal of allergy, and allergy, responds a little better to cold. So it's not like bad for you to use warm compresses if you have allergy, or good for you to use, or bad for you to use cold if you've got dry eyes. Just try them and see what makes it feel good. And of course, seeing a qualified eye doctor is a great way to, something we all ought to be doing anyway. At least once a year, certainly if we're over age 50, and so
I'm there. Well, I have a qualified eye doctor right here, Dr. John Hovannisian from Harvard Eye Associates. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to see you, Michael.
We're going to be right back.